Hi, I'm Tim O'Hara with Wildcat Manufacturing. We're going to do a walk around on a 626 Wildcat trommel screen today. Our 626 is the largest trommel in our product line. The model number designates a 6-foot diameter drum, 26 feet long. The overall weight of the machine is just under 50,000. It has a hitch weight of just under 17,000 and dual tandem axles that are rated at 22,500 each. The engine on the Wildcat 626 is a 125 horsepower Tier 3 John Deere diesel. The fuel tank is located in the engine compartment and the hydraulic tank is located up above. We have an extendable ladder for access into the engine compartment. There's plenty of room in there to check oil and do your daily service work. I'd like to show the oil drain for the engine oil. There's a valve up here to open and close it, and a cover here to remove it as you're changing oil. Makes it nice and easy to get in there for servicing the engine. I'm showing the hopper here on the trommel screen. The standard hopper holds 5 yards of material. It's a little over 13 feet wide for a nice easy dump for the loader bucket. This particular hopper is set up with the optional grizzly on top. You can see that, and the deflector shield here is folded out when you're set up. You can either order a grizzly such as this, which tips up for setup, or a live head, which also tips up. The live head is a vibratory grid, and what they're used for would be to remove large rocks, stumps, things like that you wouldn't want them to run through the trommel drum. In place of the live head or grizzly, you would see a hopper extension on the far side. It's reversible. You can mount it on this side also. You can order option of having a second hopper extension, which would extend the capacity of the hopper to 7 yards. The Wildcat hopper is nice and low. When it's set up at 4 degrees, which is a pretty normal operating angle, the hopper height is 9 feet 6 inches. And what that means is you won't need to build a ramp for the loader, which makes the unit a lot more mobile on site. It's easier to move because you don't have to tear out and build a ramp every time you move the machine. I want to talk a little bit about the components that make up the apron feed conveyor. We've got some large doors here that open up for nice service access. All of the doors have an air shock in them, so if you're out in the wind and the wind comes up, the door doesn't shut and close on you. You'll notice a nice heavy-duty framework for the conveyor and impact idlers all along on the apron feeder. Impact idlers are standard on all the Wildcat trommel screens, and that's beneficial if you've got impact loads, large rocks or stumps. If you don't have a grizzly and you know you're going to have that kind of material, and the screening drum is set up for heavy-duty material, those are quite important. The 626 has one of the widest apron feeders in the industry. The big benefit to the customer on that is it makes a larger opening between the hopper and the trommel drum, allowing bulky material to be fed through without bridging. It's also reversible and variable speed, of course, so you can tailor it to the material that you're running. We have 2 e-stops located on either side of the machine and an engine disable switch at the rear of the machine in case the customer wants to access the drum. We have a hose trough here for hydraulic lines, which protects the hydraulic lines, and in case you ever would need to change a line or do any service work, it makes them easy to access. The electrical harness is in there also. Up above, you'll see we have a catwalk for assisting in changing screen panels and general service work and cleanup. We have one of our doors removed here that allows access into the drum. The doors are all along the side of the drum. The big advantage to this is being able to get in there and clean or adjust flashing for the conveyor. Most of the other trommel screens by other manufacturers that you see will either have one large door or no access in here. So this is a very nice feature. We also have a lot of clearance below the drum and above what we call the collecting conveyor. which allows bulky material to move through the machine if you've got 3 or 4 inch screens without bridging. All of the setup and operating controls are located in this area. We have level indicators to tell you what angle you have the machine at. When the bubble is at 0, that's 5 degrees, which is generally a good position to start on. You can't see it on the video, but on the front there's another indicator here to give a side-to-side level, and there's also one up on the front jack leg. All 4 of the jack legs are controlled individually, which is a nice feature if you're on uneven terrain for setting the machine up. And the operation functions are all in sequential order as you would set the machine up. The overs conveyor and the drum control have a audible delayed startup alarm in case anybody's around the machine to warn them that the machine's about to start. All of the functions are variable speed except for the fines conveyor. The drum and the apron feeder are both reversible in case you have some material bridging and you want to back it up and restart it. This area is all the functions for driving the drum, all the components for the drum drive. You'll notice Wildcat, we drive the drum with a chain, and instead of having the chain at the leading edge of the drum, it's back here where it's a cleaner environment for the chain and the sprocket. It also provides better service access underneath of the machine. You can get under there with the tensioning device to adjust the tensioner as the chain stretches. The trunnion rollers are also adjustable. They're used for drum tracking. There's 4 of them on each corner of the drum. And the thrust wheel, which you can't see very well, but it rides in between these 2 rings here, that is observed should turn occasionally, shouldn't turn all the time, and you adjust that and track the drum with these trunnion rollers, and that's how that thrust wheel is kept adjusted properly. As we move back towards the overs conveyor, you'll notice the engine disable switch here, a grab handle and 2 steps which provide easy access into the drum if the operator wants to get in there. The engine disable switch is obviously so that no one can start the machine while somebody's inside of the drum. You'll notice the transition chutes here for the overs material coming out of the drum onto the overs belt. We have a nice wide overs belt, a 48-inch belt with cleats on it to carry bulky material. This conveyor is a standard overs conveyor. It is height adjustable. You can set it level, which for one thing provides easy access into the drum, but also can provide a picking belt if the operator wants to stand there and pick off plastic or metal and remove that from their waste stream out here or their wood product. This conveyor, when it's set up at a 26-degree angle, will stack about 11 feet. We also have an optional extended overs conveyor, which can be used for truck loading. The way to tell the 2 apart is the extended overs conveyor will have a series of cables coming up to the machine here. And we'll, like I said, we'll load a truck with that. On the far end of the machine is where the fines conveyor is located. This particular unit has a standard straight fines conveyor. We have an option for a radial fines conveyor. Depending on the height or the angle of the machine, the standard fines conveyor can stack up to about 16 feet and the radial about the same. Again, that kind of depends on the angle of the machine. We also have an option for magnetic head pulleys on the fines and the overs conveyor, as well as a cleated or a V-cleat belt on the fines conveyor. Now, when you're on a site and trying to decide if that customer would want a radial or a standard fines conveyor, what I kind of look at is how much volume they're going to be running through the machine, how many loaders they have. The big advantage of the radial fines conveyor is it gives you a much larger stockpiling capability. If they're going to have a majority of the product coming out as fines and they've only got 1 loader, it's probably a good idea. The radial conveyor will stack about 2,000 yards in a 180-degree arc at the end of the machine. It's got an undercarriage that contacts the ground. It's driven hydraulically. You can operate it with remote control from inside of the loader, so you can actually adjust where that thing is stacking material without getting out of the loader. So it's a one operator setup for the radial fines conveyor. Let's go in the drum now and talk about some of the features and functions inside the Wildcat drum. You'll notice the lifting angles here give a good lifting action and toss the material. Your goal in most products is to have the material hitting about on this side, right in this area of the drum, and coming off about here. That way you're using about 50% of your screening area. Brush adjustment is something I also want to mention. A lot of customers, a lot of operators think that the farther the brush is into the drum, the better it's going to work, which is not true. The farther it is into the drum causes more wear. The way you want these brushes set is so that you can just barely feel them inside of the screen panel. You don't need them sticking in a ½ inch. I also want to talk about our tension screen panels. The screen panels are tensioned, which adds strength to the panel and which allows us to go with use a smaller gauge wire in a lot of cases if you've got a nice clean product. The smaller gauge wire gives you more open screening area and less area for wet material to stick on. So the Wildcat screens in a lot of cases will have the ability to run wetter material and have more production compared to competitors' units. This area of the machine is where you would adjust the brushes. The brushes are all adjustable from ground level, which is a very nice feature of the Wildcat. And you'll notice you've got 4 brushes, so 4 adjustments here. I also want to mention that the grease fittings and all the grease points of the machine are all accessible from ground level. And we also, all the conveyors have self-cleaning tail pulleys. So there's a lot of service items and service-related features on the Wildcat machine that I think your operators will appreciate. When you get your new Wildcat delivered, you'll notice inside of the toolbox is a set of operator service and maintenance manuals along with an engine manual. There's other items that are inside the toolbox. One would be the bar for lifting or removing the panels alongside of the drum. As the machine gets used, occasionally the material will build up. They become more difficult, so a little help to get those panels off is nice. We also have a hydraulic gauge for testing circuit pressures on all the different hydraulic circuits. This particular unit has a remote included for the tipping the Grizzly up and down. You'll also see this remote if you have a optional radial conveyor. Have a chain here that is used primarily for changing screen panels, removing screen panels, and attachment mechanisms for lifting those out properly and safely. This chain can also be used for lifting and setting up the deflector tray for the Grizzly near the hopper. I want to talk a little bit about the material Wildcat uses for our bristle on our brushes for cleaning the drum. We use a polystyrene bristle, which is used in applications where you're poking instead of a nylon bristle. Most trommels that you see out there use a nylon bristle, and a nylon bristle is used in more of a sweeping action, like for street sweepers. Reason we use a polystyrene because a nylon bristle will hook as it starts to wear, whereas a polystyrene bristle will splinter on the end and actually become more efficient as it wears. So it's an important feature when you're trying to keep a screen panel clean to have a brush that wears effectively for the material. I want to point out the frame on the Wildcat. I call this a truss style frame. You've got an upper and a lower square tube, rectangular tube, with square tube supports in between, which gives a lot of strength for flexing on the machine, better stability going down the road. Flexing side to side, of course, is supported with cross members. The advantage of a square tube or an enclosed tube for a frame is you don't have any angle where you've got an area for material to sit on inside of the frame rail and to corrode and rust on the frame. So This design is a very clean, very strong design for a trommel screen. I'd also like to mention that the level indicators that we talked about previously, there's two to indicate the levelness of the frame from side to side. It's important to have those set the same so that the frame stays square and stable while you're running the machine, because that will help your belts track straight. It's easier to track a belt if the frame is square and straight, and also your drum rotation, keeping that aligned, your drum alignment. So all those things are critical with those bubble levels and the level indicators, and the frame is all part of that.